Well, guys, after that, all I can say is the Vampire Diaries is back. Hey guys, it's Kevin Ginsmart for Vampire Diaries Season 7, Episode 6, Best Served Cold. And holy shit, I mean, this episode, I've been telling you guys that I was really hoping this could be a really great season, and I mean, there's just been something missing from this season. It's kind of been it's not been bad, it's just not been as good as some other seasons. And, I will say, guys, that this episode was probably better than even season 6 episode. This was the return of the Vampire Diaries. This episode was awesome. It was funny. It had a really shocking twist. And besides my one thing with Mary Lou and Nora, which I'm not even talking about them in this episode because I don't give a shit about them. Other than that, I thought this episode was phenomenal. I loved it. There was so much to love about it. And, they really did a great job with this episode. If they keep making episodes like this, like I said, this is going to be the comeback season for the Vampire Diaries, definitely. And in a year for comebacks on TV, this is definitely going to be one of them. And I think the Vampire Diaries is definitely doing a very good job with that. So I really love this episode. So, of course, but the thing that was most interesting is now that we've seen everyone's, 3 years later, what exactly were they going to go from here? Well, we see that 3 years later, we go back to Damon and Alaric, and this, right away, was very interesting. We see Damon is at Alaric's house. He checks out his kid's fridge pic, then asks when he last talked to his fiance, and he says she texted him earlier. Damon said, now, of course, we are led to believe that his fiance is, Joe, or not Joe, the person that he's with, and Damon says she's not answering her phone. He says, call Caroline. So yes, Alaric and Caroline are engaged. I don't understand it, but the ending of this episode might show why. But of course, it is still like really weird because obviously this was basically Elena's father figure, and now Caroline is supposedly in engagement with him. So they want to make sure she's being used as bait, and they turn on the news and see Caroline with her head bleeding. She says she has an urgent message for Stefan, and we don't know anything that's going on. I love it. I love the ambiguous stuff that's going on here. It's awesome. I love it. So back in the past, Stefan gives a shooting lesson to a young boy with a musket. It's his son, and I like this flashback here. He calls Stefan dad. They go find a deer to shoot the gun at. Stefan raises the gun, says, never take your eye off the target. He looks back but Jacob, his son, is gone. Stefan's obviously panicking, then he wakes now from the nightmare. Caroline is there, asks who Jacob is, and says he was yelling his name, and she asks why he's down there, and Valerie comes down from in a towel and says he's out of shampoo. And this is probably the best episode that the Valerie plot worked very well. It was actually a lot of fun in this episode. So, Caroline still doesn't know a lot about Stefan's past. There's a lot that Stefan still has to tell her. Like, the fact that he had his son. I mean, we didn't know that he had a son. That was a great reveal. And how did he get this son? What happened here? I mean, that stuff I really want to find out. So, Caroline's stunned. Valerie says she'll go put clothes on. Stefan explains about Julien, his mom's boyfriend, and Caroline asks how that's their problem. Stefan says that Julien will come after Valerie, but Caroline is not sympathetic. She really doesn't care if Julien comes after Valerie because she doesn't really like Valerie very much. But Stefan says to trust him, and she says Valerie needs to disappear and needs a new identity far away. So Stefan says no, but Caroline volunteers to drive her to the airport. She kisses him, and he says he likes this manipulation. Valerie interrupts and says the Phoenix Stone drives souls mad. And then we see Julien. She says Julien was in it for a long time, so they need to make a move now. And Julien was awesome. Okay, Julien on this show was awesome. When his introduction with him and Bo sword fighting is just awesome. I love seeing that. Lily asks why they're not playing outside, and this was the episode, I think, that proved that Lily's not going to be a villain. I think Lily isn't going to be a villain after this episode. What she wants to do, it's not villainous at all. Basically, Lily remarks on Julien's cheer and asks shouldn't he be resting, and kisses her passionately, and she says she's tempted, then says they have enemies, and he asks if she means Valerie. She says don't say that name, then says it's her sons, and Julien is surprised that they're still alive, obviously. And Bo takes an invitation to Stefan, and he hands it to Damon. It's a dinner invitation. This is like the worst time for Julien to know that Stefan and Damon are alive, because obviously he wants Valerie back, and basically, they go to this dinner invitation. Damon says they must have raised her man crush from the dead. Bonnie calls Alaric and says fake Joe is at the bar and doesn't need to be unintended. And he says, watch her. But Bonnie says she has to go to Lily's possibly murder is shining. I mean, shindig. They don't really know what this means, and tells him to get there. Damon tells Stefan he's not going to meet his mom's douche boy toy. Stefan says that douche is living in their house and bathing in their tub. Damon says he wants Lily to be happy and says he'll wait 6 months then murder her. Stefan says he plans on killing Julien tonight, and Damon's jaw drops. Obviously, he didn't expect this to happen, but it makes sense, obviously. He wants to go after Julien, and Caroline and Valerie talk, and Caroline suggests that she goes to Seattle for a new place. And Valerie says that, and I mean, I think Caroline's genuinely trying to help her here. I think, honestly, obviously she doesn't like Valerie very much, but I think she honestly is trying to help her in this scene. So basically, Valerie says rain, and Caroline suggests Indonesia. Valerie says she knows what Caroline's doing, trying to get her far away, and then she says, let's talk name, and suggests Valerie go for Matilda Pettigrew, and Valerie tells her she's not a victim, and says once Stefan kills Julien, she'll be in the clear. So she thinks everything's gonna be fine. I'm not really sure, though, because obviously, you know, Mary Louise and Nora and Lily and Bo, they'll probably all attack her. So that's probably what would happen there. So Caroline doesn't know her big secret, of course, and Valerie says that he promised not to tell anyone, but she didn't know that included her. And Caroline asks for the skinny, but Valerie won't blab. She agrees to try Matilda. Nora shows Julien how to play Candy Crush. She tells her this era seems to suit her, but Nora says that Lily keeps them so close to him he doesn't know how. He doesn't know. Julien says that Lily doesn't want to turn into Valerie, and that was definitely very interesting. He offers to talk to Lily about loosening the reins, and Mary Louise comes down, and Nora insults her dress, whatever, I don't care. At this point, the only problem I'm having with this season is Mary Louise and Nora. They're just not interesting. There's nothing interesting about them in this episode. This entire episode, their plot is literally just Nora doesn't like Mary Louise's dress. She changes it, and Julien shows them how to get along and be a good couple. I mean, it was boring. When there's so much other interesting stuff going on, this is boring. I don't care. Honestly, I really don't. So, Stefan has wine, his mother invites him in, he hands the bottle over, notes all the people, and she says they're from neighboring towns. Stefan says they compelled them, but none of them are actually in danger. They don't plan on hurting them. So Stefan is surprised to see Damon beat him there and is drinking a whiskey, and Stefan asks if he's there to help him. Damon says he can't let Stefan redecorate and needs to fall in love with the place first. And I can understand what Damon's saying, you know, killing Julian's not the right thing to do. You know, now he's back. He needs to first let everyone be happy that he's back and then think about killing him. So Damon asks why he cares, and Stefan says the furniture she just brought in is psychotic. And Julien comes over and introduces himself. He calls Bo over to get them a drink. Matt shows up, and Lily tells him that this is a new start, and he tells her that they should just leave Mystic Falls, and then Nora and Mary Louise come over. Matt says that he wants them out of town. Mary Louise has changed her dress, but Nora still gives her the cold shoulder, chats up Matt, and again, I don't care. I don't care about Mary Louise and Nora. Luckily, it ends here. There's not really too much going on with them after this, which I like. So, Bonnie and Enzo then shows up at the time. He offers Lily's flowers and kisses her cheek, and I actually like seeing Bonnie and Enzo bonding in this episode, because obviously we know Bonnie and Enzo end up together in the future, and as absurd as it sounds, they actually, I think, are doing a good job of setting it up. I definitely like seeing that. Obviously, you know, he's still obsessed with Lily. Lily says she wants a fresh start, and Bonnie says that Lily's the reason she'll never see her best friend again, so no chance, and now you can kind of see why these two are going to bond, because they're both losing something. Enzo's losing Lily, and Bonnie's lost Elena. And there's a lot that they've lost, and I really feel that's what's going to get these two together. And I think they're doing a good job of making it seem plausible. So Stefan and Julien play pool. Damon comes in. They basically are trying not to kill each other. He asks if Julien heard the story about a vampire who tried to kill another while playing pool, and Damon says make a shot and tells him that he bet the vampire during a game of pool, then says another vampire came out of nowhere and stopped him. Stefan calls him Hemingway, and Damon walks out whistling. Julien glares at Stefan for the aborted attempt, obviously, because of the abortion. And Alaric finds fake Joe at the bar, surfing WebMD about amnesia. One of Joe's interns, Laura, from last semester, comes over and asks her about her honeymoon. Obviously, she thinks this is Joe. She thinks that Alaric and Joe are happily married, and they both lie, say it was great. Fake Joe gets a nosebleed, then coughs up some blood into her napkin. She asks Alaric what the hell is wrong with her, because obviously she doesn't know what's going on here. So Lily arranged retro entertainment they enjoy while sipping drinks. Then Lily takes the stage and introduces her dearest love, Julien, and says her family's now complete, and she hopes to restore the town to a state of peace. And that's true. That's what she wants to do. Problem is that Julien doesn't want to do that. Julien clearly wants to go after Stefan and Damon, but she actually wants to keep things peaceful. And after a few episodes, it makes sense as to why she wants to do that. You know, before she was just trying to summon Julien, and that whole thing about her wanting to keep things peaceful is true. And I like seeing that with Lily. I think it's a very interesting plot, and it's something that we really haven't had before. So, he says basically they all toast, and Stefan glares at Damon. Julien tells Beau that his time away may have affected his head a bit, then says he would get relief from something that Oscar left behind. Enzo eavesdrops, and Beau agrees to go find it. Julien introduces himself to Enzo, makes small talk about the food. He seems to think that Enzo is the caterer and are just being petty and insulting. I thought that was pretty funny. So Enzo comes over to Bonnie and tells him he needs some dignity. He says Julien's looking for Oscar's car and something in it. Bonnie adjusts his tie and says she's doing him the favor of making Lily a little jealous. And again, little scenes like this are really setting up Bonnie and Enzo very well. I really like this stuff. He likes that and says he got what he came for. Then he goes to walk out. Just really good scenes between them. I really liked them. So Joe is looking bad. Caroline stops by. She offers her blood to heal her, and Joe drinks some, then spits it up. Alaric wonders what's up. Valerie says that a vampire soul in a human body doesn't work, and Valerie says it can't contain the essence of a vampire and says Joe is a decomposing mess. And Caroline drags her away, says she has no tact, and Caroline says the corpse was Alaric's wife who died on their wedding day with 2 babies inside her. And of course, Valerie's horrified. She had no idea what Valerie was, she had no idea what Joe was going through and says she has no idea. She walks away really upset, and Valerie can relate to this because obviously she was pregnant with Stefan, and, with Stefan's baby, who we are assumed is Jacob. I'm assuming that Jacob is Stefan's, was Valerie's child. But I like seeing Valerie in this episode. Also, I like that Valerie doesn't seem like she's heading in the direction of being a villain. She actually seems like she's going to help them out, and I like seeing that. So Julien talks to Mary Louise, who rants that Nora's ignoring her, whatever. Julien tells a maid to stand still and say nothing. He tells Mary Louise to drink her, but she says Lily told them no drinking the guests. Julien tells her she lost her swagger and he remembers her being more devil may care. Then says, no wonder Nora's bored. Now, this was quite interesting, I will say that. I mean, he's talking about how Mary Louise used to be a lot more crazy and a lot more violent, but now she's not, and she bites the maid too, begins to feed. Julien smiles wickedly. Now, this could actually make Mary Louise and Nora very interesting. If he actually makes them more violent and crazier, I mean, this could be very interesting. Summoning Julien has just made things a lot more interesting even with them. So later, Mary Louise grabs Nora up into a passionate kiss. She smiles, pulls her upstairs, and obviously they go to have sex. So Bonnie puts on her jacket, and a cater waiter says he needs to find the high school. She asks who he's been talking to, and he says he can't remember, then says he needs to go. So Bonnie tells Matt they need to follow him. Stefan and Damon go upstairs, find out that Lily and Julien took over Damon's room and got rid of his flat screen, and Damon obviously is really upset with this. He tells Stefan to be patient, and Stefan says Julien needs to go, and his mom needs to leave town, and Damon tells him to explain why he's acting like this. This was a really great scene between Stefan and Damon, because he wants to know why he's acting like this, but Stefan says it's not a secret to tell. Matt comes in, says he found the good stuff. Damon snatches it and drinks it. Damon chokes up blood. Then Matt uses a syringe to knock Damon out. Stefan tells Matt to take Bonnie and to get out, and Stefan finds Julien at the table and stabs him. He says his brother told the wrong story, and Stefan throws him in the fireplace, but Lily runs in. She pulls him out, puts out the fire. Julien's now back on his feet, and Stefan is in trouble, and without Damon to protect him, Damon starts to come onto the floor and sits up annoyed, and Julien pulls the stake out of his gut, and Lily asks why she hates him so much. Stefan says it's not about her. She asks what she did wrong, and then Damon is there, and he says Stefan's plan went well, and Lily says to sit down, but Damon says let's go. Julien says sit down or I'll eat you myself, and so they're basically forced to sit. So this was very interesting what Julien says here. He says he spent 100 years in the Phoenix Stone, and says it was hell with emptiness and pain. He says it's literally endless, and he says every day he tried to escape, but he killed the person he loved the most instead. And he says he drove a stake into his mother over and over, and says it could have driven him mad, but he recognized it was for the trick it was. He says it snapped. If he snapped, he would be a monster, not a man. So he tells Lily her children have no respect for her. He throws a stake at Stefan, who catches it, and Julien beats on Stefan. Lily screams at me, so enraged she almost stakes Lily. She tells the boys to get out now, and this is a genuine problem for Lily. I mean, she wants to keep things peaceful. She is sincere when she says, I want to keep the peace here, and obviously Julien clearly doesn't want to. He wants to get his revenge on Stefan for doing this to him, and that's understandable. So, you understand why Julien's doing this. That's something I like about Julien, is that Julien is a good villain because you understand why he's doing this. So she controls Julien with her magic. Fake Joe tells Alaric about her death at the hands of a woman with a knife that pierced her heart, and she says she thinks her name was Florence. And Alaric says he's sorry he put her through this. Joe says she wishes she was his wife and says she was a lucky woman. Then says Alaric would have been an amazing husband. And Alaric cries, says it was nice to hear Joe's voice again. Thanks her for the chance to say goodbye. Fake Joe says goodbye, then she dies, and Alaric just bawls. He closes his eyes because he knows this is clearly the last time he's ever going to see Joe's body again. And it was good for one last time seeing her. You know, it was good closure for Alaric. And now we know, of course, that him and Caroline are going to get together. So now we know that this can't happen between him and Joe. So Caroline watched this all happen and is very upset. Matt and Bonnie are at the high school poking around. They hear a noise and find the cater waiter wheeling an IV. Now, the reason that Caroline might actually have to break things off with Stefan is probably because Stefan puts her in danger. I mean, obviously, they want to use Caroline as bait. I'm thinking for either Lily or Julien. I mean, Lily probably... I'm assuming that they're going to kill Julien and then Lily's going to come after them. It's kind of where I feel like we're headed for this season. That Julien's going to die, and then Lily's rage is finally going to come out. Because like I've been saying all season, Lily, while she is calm right now, I feel like she really does have this rage that's just that's just, you know, begging to come out. And I really feel that it's going to come out. So... basically, they hear a noise and find the carewaiter wheeling an IV. He walks by like he hasn't seen them. They follow him. They see a room full of humans, all sitting compelled with IVs in their arm. Matt asks them to stand up and go, but Bonnie says someone compelled them to be there. There's more than 50 people there. So Valerie watches the wedding video that Alaric was watching, and it's past the murderous point, and Valerie says she knows that chant, and that says the Geminis weren't trying to send Kai back to prison, but we're actually trying to save the next generation of Geminis. So, Alaric and Joe's unborn children. Now, that makes a lot of sense, obviously, what they were trying to do here. Now, I really like seeing that, because obviously, we wanted to know what was going on with the Geminis, and now we realize that they were actually trying to send, they were actually trying to make sure Alaric and Joe's kids were okay. So, I like finding that out. So, Valerie tells Alaric that she thinks his children are still alive, and that's very interesting, because obviously... Joe's body is gone, so who could have her children? Stefan and Damon go home. Damon says he's going to kick Stefan and Matt's ass. Damon says dirty works is territory, then asks why Stefan has such a hard-on for Julien. Then asks if it's about Valerie, and he mocks Stefan and says maybe Valerie's the one that but then Caroline was, and so was Elena. So, I do agree with Damon here. Stefan tells me he got Valerie pregnant in 1863, and Julien found her and beat her until he killed the baby. And Stefan says he could have been a father. Damon asks why he didn't tell him, and clearly he's lying, because we know that he has this son, Jacob, so I don't know if this isn't true or whatever, but how does he have this son? Whose son it is, I'm not really sure. I do feel we are going to end up meeting that son at some point. I don't know when, but we'll have to see. So Stefan says he knew Damon would have made a glip crack about it being 150 years ago. Stefan says he's going to kill Julien. Nothing will stop him from doing it ASAP. Valerie explains to Alaric about magical transfers that are fail-safes to keep Gemini babies alive, and Caroline says not to get his hopes up and says it's insane. Valerie then rolls out this map and takes some of Alaric's blood to do a low care spell to tell them where the babies are if they're alive, and she tells Alaric to focus, then starts chanting. The blood on the map starts moving. Damon sits by Stefan. Stefan asks him if Julien reminds him of anyone tonight, and Damon says their bastard father, and Stefan says that Julien hits harder than their father. Damon says he and Elena talked about having a family, even though it wasn't possible, and Stefan asks if he was scared that they would turn out like their father, and Damon reminds him that their dad sent their mom away to die, then shot them both, and, I mean, you can definitely tell that, I mean, this is something that we really haven't touched upon a lot, and that's something I like that we're getting this season, that we're finding out more about Stefan and Damon's childhood, and more of what they had to deal with. I mean, I think it's just very interesting. So Stefan talks about the rich life he's led, and says his only regret is not having a child, and of course, we know he did have a child. He had Jacob, and Damon tells him he will help Stefan kill Julien whenever he wants, tonight or tomorrow, then tells him that he's in, and they plan on killing him. So Lily runs to Julien, says he was in a blind rage, and attacked her sons. He says her son's is lucky he has his head about after throwing him in the fire, and Julien asks why she cares, and says the Lily he knew moved on from her children. He asks where is the woman he loved, and says he doesn't recognize this version, and she says this version of her doesn't want her children dead, and she has a problem if he can't live with that. So definitely, they're gonna have a problem here. I like seeing this here. He says he's frightened that he's not the Julien she remembers. Lily tells him they'll fix it together, but he promises he won't do anything like that again to her sons. Julien nods, then says he needs to feel safe, and says her sons will strike again, and he needs to protect himself. She says they need the entire family to help, and he says that they love him. So, very interesting stuff between Julien and Lily, I have to say. I thought that was definitely very interesting when we got here. So Valerie chants, the blood moves across the map. Alaric keeps his eyes closed, focuses while Caroline watches. She says it's not working, but it moves, and she said the blood ran off the map, then sets it on fire when it touches a cloth, and then Caroline went to wipe it with. And this was fantastic. I mean, like I said, this really was the comeback episode of Vampire Diaries, and this proves it, because Valerie says the babies are here. Valerie says they're not on the map, they're inside of Caroline, and yes, that's how the episode ends, and how do we move on from this? I mean, I don't understand this. The babies are now inside Caroline. Now, I do understand that obviously they need to go somewhere, but inside Caroline now, that's really interesting, and that is an awesome twist. I didn't see that coming at all, and they did it. They made a genuinely shocking twist. It's probably one of the most shocking things that Vampire Diaries has done in the last 3 years, honestly. I mean, obviously, Elena sleeping was shocking, but we knew something was going to happen to Elena, so this is something we didn't know at all, and I love that. And of course, yes, Candace Acola is pregnant in real life, so they'd have to write that into the show, but I didn't actually think they would. I think it's very interesting the way they've done that, and I love that. So what is Caroline going to do? Now that she has these babies, what's going to happen here? Now I think we have a more general idea of why her and Alaric probably get engaged. It's probably because they're forced to, he needs some sort of wife, and she argues to, she agrees to be his wife, and that's going to be very interesting. I really like what's going on, though, I like that Valerie and Caroline are kind of helping each other out, because now Valerie understands what Caroline's gone through, what what Alaric has gone through, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens between Valerie and Caroline. Definitely, I really like their bonding. Alaric leaving Joe, the fake Joe behind, obviously is very sad, but he's realizing it needs to happen, and I think they did that very well. I really like this conflict, though, between Lily and Julien, because Julien, obviously, he wants to kill, but Lily doesn't want him to, because she wants to save her family and protect her family, while Julien clearly is not interested in that. He's interested in killing her family, he's interested in hurting her family, he's not interested in protecting their family. He definitely is not interested in this peaceful lifestyle that she wants. In fact, he thinks it's absurd, probably. So, I also like Damon and Stefan. Are they actually going to kill Julien? Obviously, Damon's telling him that he wants to, but we'll have to see what happens with there. What happened with Jacob? Where is Jacob? Who is Jacob related to? Obviously, we know that Stefan had a son named Jacob, but who is he related to? Who is Jacob? Is he still out there? Did he die? I'm not really sure. We'll have to see what's going on there. Like I said, Julien could actually make the Mary Louise and Nora stuff actually very interesting if we keep it as Nora and Mary Louise, Mary Louise actually gaining strength from Julien. That could be very interesting if they keep it at that. Definitely that's something I would like if they did that. I think it'd be very interesting, and I really would like seeing that. Definitely very interesting stuff there. Like I said, I think they're handling Bonnie and Enzo very well. You really see why these two probably are going to get together, probably going to get out together because they can't get anyone else, and I like seeing that. I think that's actually going to work out very well for them. But also, what causes Damon and Alaric to turn against each other? Maybe it's the fact that Damon might try to hurt the baby, or Damon might do something irrational. I mean, we don't really know. I think we're starting to put the pieces together, and that's something they're doing well. I was worried that these flashbacks would kind of just take the show out of context and wouldn't really go what's going on. But no, they're actually making it so it makes sense, and I like seeing that, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that. Those guys saw this episode. Like I said, this was the comeback episode of the Vampire Diaries by far. I absolutely loved this episode. By far best episode of the season. I think the Mary Louise and Nora stuff, like I said, was even interesting. Those guys saw this episode, and we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of Doctor Who, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.